UFC 312 betting show. We have 13 fights this Saturday. I'm Jon Kelly. Let's hear the picks. And kicking things off, we have Hyun-Sung Park, a minus 238 favorite. Comeback on Naim Jargal to Mendembrel is plus 195. And we'll start on the Park side. You know, both of these guys previously fought on road to UFC. And it's very clear that Hyun-Sung Park has clear power on the feet. He's also reckless at times, and we've seen him kind of pay the price for that to an extent in a couple of those fights. He got dropped in multiple fights, and I just think that speaks to his raw talent. Like, clearly he's powerful, he's explosive, very athletic, right? A lot of first round finishes, but you see that recklessness and the lack of technicality, particularly with his defense, is a concern. And you're fighting someone in Mendembrel who, yes, is a little raw in his own right, but the guy's very powerful, 8-1 prospect. He's got power on the feet. We saw that in his UFC debut when he dropped Carlos Hernandez, ended up losing a split decision, but he does have power on the feet. I think both of these guys could potentially hurt each other on the feet. And Mendembrel actually has a little bit of a ground game as well. He actually competed nationally both in judo and sambo for Mongolia. So this is one where I got interest in the dog here. I think this is a high variance matchup. I'm not expecting it to hit the judges' scorecards, but I think Mendembrel is getting slept on here because he's dangerous in multiple areas, and I still have some questions with Hyun-Sung Park in terms of his technicality, his cardio, and his overall round winning ability. So give me the dog here. We'll say it's Mendembrel by TKO. That's the official pick. And next fight up, we have Quillan Salkhild, a minus 675 favorite. The comeback on Anshul Jubli is plus 490. And we'll start on the Salkhild side. This is another guy that fought previously on the Contender Series this past season. And that's kind of the theme of this card. You see a lot of UFC debutant fighters. You see a lot of Contender Series guys from this past season. You guys know I go deep on Contender Series every single year. It's on my YouTube page. So check out the old videos that I did for these specific fighters in their Contender Series matchup. That'll give you a little bit more of a background on these guys and how I feel about them, both short-term and long-term. And this is a guy in Salkhild who I actually like. I liked him quite a bit on Contender Series in that matchup, even though he was facing someone that was pretty good and honestly probably better than Anshul Jubli in this matchup. But I just think he has a lot of traits that we can get behind, right? Like, he's big for the division, he's got good cardio, he's got decent striking on the feet, but his best skill set is that he can push a grappling pace. He can land takedowns, really just bully his opponents on the mat. And he's a good submission grappler as well. We saw that on the Contender Series, and I think we see that again in a matchup like this. The one concern with Salkhild, and I said this, I believe, on that Contender Series breakdown, is that he's very stiff on the feet. And at times, he can be hurt, he can be hit. So as he starts to face better guys, particularly better counter strikers, that's where I would really have some concerns with him when he's priced as a big favorite. But in a matchup like this, where I just really expect him to get his grappling going and have a big advantage in that area, I just don't have many concerns, because Anshul Jubli is coming off a knockout loss to Mike Breeden as a big favorite his last time out 14 months ago, so a pretty long layoff now. But Jubli just doesn't really have a path to victory here against Salkhild unless he's able to hurt him on the feet, which I just don't really see happening. And I think on the mat, he just gets absolutely outclassed by Salkhild here, and I think Salkhild will ultimately find a finish on the mat. We'll say it's Salkhild by submission. That's the official pick. And next fight up, we have Kevin Jousset, a minus 238 favorite. The comeback on Jonathan Makhif is plus 195. And this is another Contender Series fighter off this past season in Makhif. He's basically like the very watered down Walmart version of Salkhild, because he fights kind of the same, you know, very reckless on the feet, very hittable on the feet, and he's been dropped. He's been knocked out as well, and he wants to get his grappling going. The difference is his wrestling isn't as good as Salkhild. His grappling isn't as good as Salkhild either. And I'm just not convinced that in a matchup like this against Jousset, who's a much better technical striker, who's a high volume striker on the feet, so he's going to be outlanding him with the jab, mixing in the leg kicks. And then Jousset also has a little bit of a sneaky submission game as well. So I don't think Makhif, even though he's going to try to get his grappling going, I'm just not convinced he's going to be able to have much success really in any area. So we'll say it's Jousset by decision. That's the official pick. And next fight up, we have Cody Steele. And I'll say it again. He fought on the Contender Series this past season. He's making his UFC debut. This guy comes from a very high-level grappling background. He holds a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, competed in a million different grappling tournaments, but he is a brawler. He is game on the feet. 7-0 undefeated prospect. Bunch of wins by knockout. Bunch of wins early, but he hasn't really faced much level of competition. Now, on the flip side, Wang is coming off a knockout loss to Chris Padilla, who's also more of kind of a grappler and ended up not really known for his power, ended up getting the finish there. Zhang has also been submitted multiple times on the regional scene throughout his career. So this is one where I do like the spot for Cody Steele. I think Cody Steele does have some issues because he's another one of those guys that gets zealous on the feet and is reckless and can be hit, but his cardio's on point. He seems to be pretty durable, at least so far against the lower level of competition, and I think he's going to have a clear grappling edge, a clear power edge as well, and a clear durability edge. So we're going to say it's Steele by submission. That's the official pick. And next fight up, we have the older brother of Ilia Topuria. It's Alexander Topuria. He's a minus 380 favorite, making his UFC debut, going up against Colby Thicknesse on the comeback at plus 300. This was originally supposed to be Cody Haddon, which I was much more interested in that matchup. Now Haddon had to pull out due to injury. He's being replaced by Thicknesse, who's a local guy, 7-0, former bantamweight champion over in Hex promotion, which is the same promotion that brought us Cody Haddon and some of these other fighters that are fighting on this card as well. But Thicknesse, honestly, I don't think his game is ready, like whatsoever. I think he's kind of a generalist. He's not great in any one area. His striking's just kind of mid. He can mix in some wrestling at times, but he hasn't really faced anybody either. And then on the flip side, Topuria is certainly not his brother, and his level of competition is even worse than the level of competition that Thicknesse has had. So we don't really know what his ceiling is. We don't really know what his floor is either. He basically got all first round finishes. His only loss, he was knocked out in the third round. That's the only fight in his career that lasted past the first round. And after that, he took 6 years off, then came back, earned a couple first round stoppages, and now he's here in the UFC. Now, he does seem to have, his boxing looks very similar to his brother, which is very good. Doesn't work the body as much, but certainly has power. The right hand looks exactly like his brother in some of those combinations, and he seems to have a solid ground game as well. So those things are certainly encouraging. Questions with the cardio for sure, and some other things, but I think in a matchup like this, he's going to roll because Thicknesse, like I said, I just don't think is very good, but also, despite being undefeated, the second fight in his career, I believe, for Thicknesse, he got dropped in that fight, could have arguably been stopped, and he ended up coming back, earned a split decision victory. I wasn't even convinced that he won that fight, but it just goes to show that, like, I don't know if he's super durable either. So this is one where I think Topuria, makes a statement in his UFC debut, gets the finish. We'll say it's Topuria by TKO. That's the official pick. And next up, we have Kong Wang, a minus 485 favorite. The comeback on Bruna Brazil is plus 370. And you guys know the name Kong Wang. She's the one that, puts the Joker makeup on at weigh-ins, makes this big spectacle, and then comes out against Gabriela Fernandez as a massive betting favorite. Fernandez rocks her and then submits her. I actually hit on Fernandez live in that fight, which was absolutely crazy. It was a massive number. I think it was 12-1 or something absurd. But yeah, just absolute scenes seeing that big of an upset. And now she's coming back here again, propped as a big favorite. But I think in a matchup like this, she should have some advantages, particularly in the striking. She comes from a high-level kickboxing background, and Bruna Brazil also comes from a kickboxing background, certainly not as high level. And Brazil, we've actually seen kind of adapt her game because previously, she's been knocked out multiple times. She doesn't have the best chin. So what we've seen her do, she goes over to the Fighting Nerds and she ends up, implementing her ground game. We see the wrestling. She comes through as a big underdog against Molly McCann in her last fight. I expect that to be the path to victory for her here, but she's moving up a weight class. I don't know if I trust her ground game enough, her wrestling enough to really force Wang into those positions that she's not comfortable. And for that reason, I think she gets clearly outstruck, maybe even hurt on the feet. But we're going to say it's Kong Wang. Wang by decision. That's the official pick. And next fight up, we have Vyacheslav Borshchev, a -120 favorite now. The comeback on Tom Nolan is +100. And we'll start on the Borshchev side. You guys remember he fought Chase Hooper his last time out. That was actually one of my biggest wins all of last year. I was on Chase Hooper on the money line as an underdog. I was on Hooper by submission and Hooper scorecards, no action. So Hooper came through in a big way in that fight. And if you guys remember, I was very annoying that week on Twitter, just posting clips of Chase Hooper and Borshchev defensively wrestling. Like, I honest to God, did not think it was a hot take. Obviously, I was being very annoying with it on Twitter that week. You can go back and view some of my timeline for the last time he fought if you want to see that and get a laugh. But like, it's so clear to me, the way to beat this guy is you take him down and you out-grapple him. He defends takedowns at 35%. The dude has absolutely paper hips. He cannot defend takedowns. And even though Hooper's wrestling was not great, Hooper can take you down if you don't have hips. And I just knew that if Hooper was able to get to those positions, he was going to absolutely dominate him on the mat. And we saw that play out. I obviously didn't expect him to drop him on the feet, but I don't trust the durability of Borshchev either. So there's multiple reasons why you can be concerned with betting on this guy. But then on the flip side, Tom Nolan, I don't think he has the wrestling or the grappling that Chase Hooper does, obviously. And I also don't know if that's even going to be the game plan, because if it was, I do think that Nolan is a guy who has shown some vicious ground and pound. He's a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So I think if he could get to those positions, he could potentially dominate as well. I just have much less confidence that he'll be able to get to those positions, or that he's going to try to get to those positions, because this is a guy that is primarily a striker, fights out of the southpaw stance, very long for the division. He's got knees in the clinch, elbows as well. He's a good striker, no defense. And when you give me a guy like that against Borshchev, if I don't think he's going to take him down, or at least I'm not confident that he's going to try to, and you're just going to stand and strike with him, well, Borshchev, that's literally what he wants. He's a very good kickboxer. I mentioned the defensive grappling concerns, the durability concerns, but the guy's a very good striker. He's got power on the feet. He's clean, he's technical, and he's much sharper defensively than a guy like Tom Nolan. And so I could see the case for both sides here, but I gotta slightly lean with Borshchev here as the cleaner striker, because I do think the fight is more likely to play out on the feet. So give me Borshchev. I think he could hurt him and potentially find the finish. We'll say it's Slava Claus by TKO. That's the official pick. And next fight up, we have Gabriel Santos, a -230 favorite. The comeback on Jack Jenkins is +190. And this is one where I'm still kind of going back and forth. We'll see what the rest of the guys have to say on the Fight Numbers betting show. That's going to be on my channel tonight at 9 p.m. going live with the fellas. So be sure to hang out there with the live chat, get your questions in. But that's going to be one where I want to hear their take, because I'm considering betting the underdog here. I just haven't fully made up my mind. I respect Gabriel Santos. I think he's very solid. This is a guy who is coming off that decision win over Jia Yi. He was previously went to a competitive decision in his UFC debut with Leron Murphy, but then was infamously knocked out in a fight that he was winning against David Onama. But he seems to have a pretty solid skill set on the feet. He can fight from both stances, mix in the leg kicks, pretty sharp on the feet. And then he's also got some solid grappling as well. And I think that's where he could have an advantage here. But I don't know if he's really going to pursue it, I guess. And also, I don't know if he has the wrestling to get the fight there. And then on the feet, Jack Jenkins, like this, he's just as game as Santos on the feet. He's got nasty, nasty leg kicks that he's hurt multiple opponents with, that he's finished multiple opponents with. He's fighting in front of his home crowd, so the crowd's going to be behind him. Both of these guys are going to be wanting to move forward, high volume show. I just think this is a high variance matchup where the dog is going to look very live here. Jenkins has mixed in takedowns in the past, but I do think he'll be at a submission grappling disadvantage. So I don't know if that's going to be the route that he wants to go. It's one that I really just think plays out closely, and I'll slightly side with Santos just because I do respect the grappling edge if he's able to get to some of those positions, and he's just a little bit sharper defensively. So I'm going to slightly favor him. We'll say it's Santos by split decision. That's the official pick. And up next, we have Jake Matthews, a minus 245 favorite. The comeback on Francisco Prado is plus 200. And I'm not going to spend a ton of time here because I think the path to victory is very clear for Jake Matthews. He needs to take this guy down and out-grapple him. He's certainly the better submission grappler. I expect him to be the better wrestler as well. But because he's Jake Matthews and he's tough to trust, there's always some concern. He's low volume at times on the feet. He doesn't usually fight with the right game plan at times as well. So I don't know if I want to, put my eggs in that basket in terms of like parlaying him on the money line, even though I do feel pretty confident he wins. It's just mostly IQ concerns on the Matthews side. And then on the Prado side, this is a guy that I actually do like because he's exciting. He wants to move forward, put on a brawl, but his cardio's not very good. And he's sloppy at times on the feet as well. And he can be out grappled as well. So I think it's a tough matchup for him. He's lost both fights that went the full 15 minutes, and I expect this one to do so as well. So give me Jake Matthews with the grappling angle. Hopefully he uses it. We'll say it's Matthews by decision. That's the official pick. And next fight up, we have Rodolfo Bellato, a minus 162 favorite. Ignore the graphic there. That was an error on my part. And Jimmy Crute on the comeback at plus 136. Again, those odds on the screen are incorrect. That was from the Borshchev fight, and I did not update it, so apologies there. So Bellato, minus 162 favorite. I just don't, I understand why he's the favorite here, but I also, I don't understand the love for Bellato that I'm seeing. I think this guy is an exciting fighter. He's got power on the feet. He's got a little bit of grappling game as well. He's very aggressive in chaining some of those submissions together. And if you do like the Bellato side, that would be the angle that I would take, is Bellato by sub, because you know that Jimmy Crute is going to push a grappling pace. He's coming off almost a 2-year layoff since he was submitted by Alonzo Menafield. And he's also somebody that averages over 4.5 takedowns per 15 minutes. Very one-dimensional. He's going to want to go to the wrestling. And I actually picked Jimmy Crute in this fight because I do expect him to have some success with that wrestling, fighting in front of his home crowd. And Bellato just hasn't proven a ton to me. Very hittable on the feet. He's been dropped. He's been finished as well. He was almost finished against Ihor Pereira, and that was one of the most exciting fights where he was basically on death's door and then ends up coming back and getting the finish. I believe I cashed a round 2 ticket on him there, so can't knock the guy, but I think this is one where either Crute's going to have wrestling success and either get a finish or win a decision, or he's going to have wrestling success, get him down, and then Bellato's going to snatch up a sub. That's the way I see this fight playing out. So those would be the ways that I would attack it. But give me the underdog here, Jimmy Crute, by TKO in front of his home crowd. He gets back in the win column, and that's going to be the official pick. And next fight up, we have Taliesin Teixeira, a minus 135 favorite. The comeback on Justin Tafa is plus 114. And this is a really funny matchup because you have two heavyweight strikers, strikers for the most part. Teixeira has actually a grappling background. He holds a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and he can submit you if he can take you down. That's where I have some question marks, though, because this guy's fought basically nobody. He's huge for the division. He's going to have like a 9-inch reach advantage here over Tafa, but his striking is not very good. We saw that even on the Contender Series. He's wild. He can be countered as well. And he's facing someone in Justin Tafa who is very one-dimensional, but what he has is big power on the feet. And he's actually a good boxer in terms of heavyweight standards. So I think this is one where, despite having a big reach disadvantage, if Teixeira just moves forward, doesn't try to grapple, or is unable to, he's going to get countered by Tafa and potentially put his lights out. So give me the underdog again here in Justin Tafa. Tafa by TKO. That's the official pick. Which brings us to our co-main event, as Tatiana Suarez is actually the betting favorite now, minus 120. The comeback on Weili Zhang is plus 100. And this is one where I certainly see the path for Tatiana Suarez, right? Like I've been saying for years, she's the best wrestler in any female division on the UFC roster. I stand by that. I don't think it's really even up for debate at this point, but she's coming off a long layoff. She last fought Jessica Andrade, submitted her back in August of 2023. Now she's fighting somebody that's much more powerful on the feet, and Weili Zhang, much better striker. Zhang's been improving her grappling as well, but she still only defends takedowns at 50%, and that's going to be tested at a very very high level against Tatiana Suarez. I know Suarez doesn't have the cleanest entries at times, but she's very aggressive. She's very relentless in chaining those takedown attempts together and eventually dragging you to the mat. And that's where I see her having a clear advantage on the feet. I actually think she could even find a finish on the mat once she takes Weili down. Where I would have concern with Tatiana Suarez is if she can't have the wrestling success, she's toast on the feet. I don't think her striking is anywhere near Weili Zhang, and I think as the fight extends, if Suarez, gasses out pursuing all that wrestling the first couple rounds, and then this gets to round 4 and round 5, and those takedowns look a lot more labored, she's unable to get them, and she's stuck striking with Weili Zhang, I think that's going to be a massive problem. But ultimately, I do think the more likely outcome is she does find that success early. She does kind of dominate Weili into some of those grappling exchanges and actually find a finish. So we're going to say it's Tatiana Suarez. Suarez by submission. That's the official pick. Which brings us to our main event, as Dricus du Plessis is a minus 205 favorite. The comeback on Sean Strickland is plus 170. And honestly, these guys just fought two fights ago. And I feel like it's going to play out kind of similarly. I know that's not a hot take, but Strickland brings the same thing to every fight. He's high volume, jab, move, stick and move, mix in the leg kicks, very solid. But he also kind of gets lulled into sparring matches at times. And when you do that with Dricus du Plessis, who now has proven wrong the fact that he doesn't have the cardio to go 5 rounds. Somebody that does have more power than Strickland, that can land the bigger shots and mix in the grappling as well. We saw him land multiple takedowns in that first fight where he ended up winning a split decision. And I think that's going to be the game plan here, where if he's landing the bigger shots and he's wrestling, even though I expect it to be close, I think those are enough to edge those close rounds. We're going to say it's du Plessis by decision. That's the official pick. And as always, guys, fightnumbers.com has everything you need if you're betting on fights this weekend. I appreciate you watching. Best of luck, and we'll see you next time.